Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We have to intend to go all the way. Our determination must be unrelenting, exact, and continuous, as well as focused. Our practice should not be a sometime affair. It needs to be ongoing. We breathe, drink, clothe this body in order to do this work for liberation. Liberation from suffering, mental suffering, emotional suffering. Liberation from expectations. Therefore, disappointments. Freedom from the poisonous arrow, the arrow of ignorance. Which requires our all. Let's not kid ourselves. No one can deny the importance of breathing or food, the basic requisites to sustain this existence of ours in this body. But we somehow close an eye or two when it comes to the work that needs to be done on the mind, our mind, no one else's. Our excuses will not help because we're working against time, valuable time, our time, which we do not know how long or short it's going to be. But although our focus, our focal point is continuously on this I and my making mind. I want this, I don't want that, I expect this, etc., etc. Yet, we give the least amount of attention, if any, to it. We never seem to run out of things that we essentially want to be distracted by, just to avoid observing what's happening in the mind. And we look at the world, the world and its stories. Well, the world's stories become our stories as we dodge and sidestep the very important work that is maintaining a wise and mindful attitude towards the inflow, the influx of impressions, the data coming in through the six sense doors, which end up being the fuel that animate and magnify our sense of fear and the ever-present quest for safety and love, for which we continue to look outside into the world to gain that deep sense of well-being that comes from feeling safe and secure. This is one of the reasons why we don't want to be alone. Like when we're on retreats, actual retreats, physical retreats. But even in such settings, again, the focus becomes the other people around us that we get to see there. Even if there is silence to be maintained. But they become now our main focus. Oh, look how they're walking. Look, how come they chew so loudly? Look how many times they move. We're supposed to sit still. Always outside. The attention is left outside. Again, we sidestepped. As the world just keeps on going on and on, doing its thing. And we keep losing more and more of our precious time. So my encouragement to you today is to bring back and place the attention where it's supposed to be. But it's an ongoing work. It needs our full attention. Imagine if you're sitting next to your beloved, someone that you really care about, even if it's a pet. I apologize for the background noise. But imagine if you're sitting next to this loved one and they're saying to you things that are so heartfelt and you're not there. I mean, your eyes are looking somewhere else, and they're trying to engage with their eyes. They're trying to get your attention. Perhaps they're even trying to hold your hand. If it's a cat or if it's a dog, they're trying to snuggle. And you're just like brushing them off, looking somewhere else. Okay. Will this being next to you who's giving you so much affection or in need of some, will not feel that you're not present? Well, that's normally our state. When we're not mindful, we are completely foregoing, we're completely avoiding, neglecting to be there for the mind, the work that needs to be done for the mind. I've mentioned this before in therapy sessions, and as well as in some in personal relationships I've had, friends, family, etc. When I see people so caught up in their thoughts, in their worries, I ask a very simple question. I give them the hypothetical situation where we only have 5 minutes left and there's an asteroid coming. And we know it's coming. Does this person sitting across from us all of a sudden continue to be insignificant? That we can kind of like, yeah, I have better things to do. Let me just ponder what I'll be doing tomorrow, how I would like the world to be, etc., etc. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll appreciate the warm touch of your hand, the soft gaze of your eyes, holding this space with you. Then, just then, not now. Or suddenly, these last 5 minutes bring me back to this living experience for the first time, the freshness of it. Never to take it for granted, even though it's just five, it's like 4.5 now. You don't have time to lose. And that's why the Buddha valued determination so much as a crucial quality, necessary quality. It's the fuel that helps us to run the engine of mindfulness. And to never take it for granted. So it's not just soft, lackadaisical, just like, yes, being aware of awareness and being so. No, sometimes we have to be very determined, focused like a laser, continuous. The other moments will come too. That's just the icing on the cake, as they say. Even when we're asleep, sometimes, or when we wake up, suddenly we're caught as if in mid-sentence of the mind, becoming aware of itself, or the body, or your feelings, or the dhammas. That's an opportunity to sit. That's an opportunity to become aware. Or when you're driving, when you're sitting somewhere and at work, suddenly you become aware of what's happening. Oh, I can feel the pulsating sensations in my arteries, in my veins, or how I'm holding this thing. Don't just slip away out of that state. That's a beautiful gift that your practice has given you. We need to use those entry points of awareness that take us into deeper and deeper layers of wisdom, which give us even more. So that is what I'd like to extend to you this morning, and open up for any comments, questions, thoughts, critiques, etc. Just turn your video on if you have a question, so that we can see you, and you don't have to be on camera all the time. Just when you're speaking, I appreciate that. Yes, KK.
I just want to start by just thanking Bante and thanking you, Patricia and Russell, for helping me this week. I had a very difficult week with my son being not well. And to follow up on what you said about, sometimes you can even be at retreat and you can be distracted, looking at someone's face, what they should be doing during meditation and so forth. That would kind of undermine the quality of the retreat. But I also want to just talk about the other side, why I really cherish, being here every Saturday, is that sometimes you also feel the in Tai Chi and they would call it the Qi, the kind of the whole metta. Maybe it is in the Buddhist, it's more like the metta Qi, that radiate in the group. If you feel that you have a group of people that share the same belief and share the same kindness, it just, to me, that is the positive part of being in a group. But I fully agree with you that, I think Emerson called it the sweetness of solitude. And I was like, remember a word that Yupatissa taught me, probably one of the first or second time we met on Zoom. When I asked him, I said, when do you meditate? I've never done that before, and I've never taken, you're my first Buddhist teacher. I've never, and I was thinking, I wasn't like coming as a Buddhist to take your lesson. I was just trying to learn. I have an open mind. I was just coming to learn. And what he said is that I usually do it the first thing in the morning, that sweet time. And I said, gee, the sweet time, I mean, it's like sitting there. It seems uncomfortable, and I just have a zillion things waiting for me to do that are more urgent. I have to answer these emails from students. I have to workmen in the house and everything. So he just do it, right? But it wasn't easy to me, but so that there are times when something bad happened that you finally got it. So I have been getting it gradually, but I always cheated during these sessions. Once I turn off the video, okay, I got my breakfast, I brush my hair. Sometimes I just first thing I come on. But today, I think I sat longest than usual, exactly at the time when I feel that, gee, should I call my son in the hospital? I just feel this is so important for me to be with you and to have that equanimity. So again, I just really want to thank you and say that it's so true that we always think that, oh, we can do it later, but there's never that time. Every day, something very unexpected happen. So I will always say that, okay, I'll wait till the holiday, I'll wait till Christmas to send you this paper. And then every day, there's always something. So for something so important, like the sitting and the mind, I think we should devote the most important time of the day, which is when we wake up to do it, or else it will be interrupted. So I really want to thank you, and thank you for this weekly sweet time.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, Ramadina.
I would like to join KK in sharing a thought of gratitude. I just realized this morning that since the beginning of COVID, there has not been a week that we didn't gather together for the retreat. I mean, even before the COVID, we would do retreats with Bante at IBMC in LA. So I see this as a wonderful oasis for us to be reminded of the fact that we're not alone, that we have each other to lean upon. Like KK said, at times of turmoil and difficulty, we have the bridges that we have created between all of us. And I just, simply want to thank Bante for his continuous determination to never cancel the retreats, even when you were going through your travels and ups and downs of what's been taking place in the world. So just thank you.
It's like cleaning up your windshield that's full of gunk, full of mud, and it's drying. The windshield of your car, and you have a perfectly functioning car, nicely fueled up, the engine runs, but you cannot see an inch, a centimeter in front of you. The windshield is thickened with the dirt and the mud. Practicing, especially in the morning, is like getting up and wiping it clean. Or snow in the cold countries, right? Uh, you have thick layer of snow piled up, sometimes up to half a meter, maybe a meter. So you need to wipe that thing clean in order for you to make use of the other functions of the vehicle that is going to take you from point A to point B. Because remember, the layer is always, so long as we're in this plane of existence, it will keep piling up. Even as arahants, even as the arahant, uh, the Buddha himself, he would meditate. If they are meditating and they have completed the task, the holy life has been completed. There's no more places to go, in a sense, so to speak, in the practice. And they did it. Why? Because there's a sense of comfort. Because we're still living in this body. Remember, there's two arrows the Buddha talked about. One is the arrow of ignorance, which we can remove. The other arrow we cannot, so long as we are inhabiting a body that is subject, susceptible to decay, to death. It will go through these transitions. And those transitions are disconcerting. They're shocking, in fact. They jolt our sense of security. Even if you were a god, no god wants to have a bead of sweat develop on their forehead or a wrinkle show up, because they know their time is limited. They're very afraid, even as a god, because they know they're going to be dying out of that state. Not different than us. When you go to the emergency room, or someone nowadays gets a cough, people are very afraid of coughing. Normal coughing, clearing up your throat. Nowadays, everybody's looking around to see, hey, is it okay? Or am I going to be like, here's the one, let's get him. That fear, that extra fear. It's troublesome to occupy a body. But the Buddha said it's unavoidable. So long as we're born, we're going to go through these painful experiences. But the other arrow, the poisonous, that's the arrow that is the most important one, which we have control over. And that is the arrow of ignorance that must be removed. But it requires the consistent effort on our part to always be on it. we can't just eat a burger and then drink a glass of, poison. No, we must stay away from that. That's akusala, that's unwholesome. Continuously eating food that replenishes the energy of the body. Take care of it. And similarly with the mind. So I'm glad you guys are benefiting from the practice. And I'm glad you guys are here continuously. So that also gives me encouragement to continue. So any other thoughts, questions, comments? Yes, Chitta.
Yeah, thank you, Bante, and thank you, Dharmadina, for sharing gratitude there, because I feel the same myself. Yeah, I'm just very thankful, and I just thought I'd, like, on this note, maybe just share something that's been a really beneficial addition to my practice lately, and it's really helping me develop the mindfulness, like, in my life. And what I've been doing is, because I think that for me, walking meditation is exceptionally important, because it helps me embody the Dharma and then start embodying mindfulness in my daily activities. But how I've made a little change to it is, instead of just doing the walking up and down from my front door to the kitchen and back, I start doing that, but then I start walking around the house, and this is enabling me to just bring daily activities into me. That's, it's just like bridging the gap a little bit further between the walking meditation and actually doing things. And then maybe I'll start doing a little chore while it's in my designated time. I just thought I would share that, because it's been really beneficial. I've been busier than I can remember being most of the time lately. Yet my sati is stronger, and yeah. I mean, I'm not far from perfect, but it's getting there. So I just thought I would share that, Venerable, and for everyone. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. After all, that is the whole purpose of practicing mindfulness. When you bite into an apple or a tomato, we have all of the 4 satipatthanas there in that experience. All of it. Now, which one we pay attention to, of course, it's up to the development of the mind of the person. How far or how deep have they gone into the practice? There's obviously the body. So you become aware of the different sensations, starting with how cool is the skin, the temperature, coolness of the apple, presuming that it was taken out of the fridge or something. That in itself, you can write a book on it, a dissertation on it. The different fingers, your thumb, how each of them are holding it, the weight, your eyes looking at the apple. And then you can focus on the Vedananupassana, which is the feeling generated by you looking at this green or red or pink or yellow, whatever type of an apple it is. And then observing and seeing, oh, is there any longing for me to jump right into it? Dig my teeth into it? Is there lust? Is there pleasure seeking? What is there? Is there need for the body to satiate its craving? So we're back into the body. How about the mind? When I'm noticing the memories come up. So there's sanya playing, because now it is connecting it with old memories. Yes, I remember that apple, that granny apple, that pink, beautiful apple that somebody gave me once. Yes. And is there any sankharas of developing? Am I conjuring up images now? Oh, when I bite into this, this is how it's going to feel like, da 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 da. Or am I looking at the hindrances, for example? Is the mind restless? Is there lust in it? Or am I even seeing the Four Noble Truths in all of this? So what we pretty much have done is utilized all four aspects of the Satipatthana in the simple act of holding an apple that is not even bit into yet. We haven't even bitten into it. So one of the enjoyable experiences is every time I take a step, like if I'm going up a stairway or walking into the bathroom or out of a room, I try to play this game of noticing which foot am I entering or exiting a room with. Is my elbow brushing against the doorway? Or how am I holding the toothbrush as I'm brushing my teeth? The examples are countless. So thank you for that, because it's definitely, the whole point of doing walking meditation is to bridge that gap as much as we can to the point where it doesn't have any gaps between your sitting and your walking. Imagine that. You're a bundle of awareness wherever you may be. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? And whether you're finding these suggestions being made by your fellow meditator colleagues are helping you, or you could use more of in your own practice. Remember, each of your practices, each of you and your own way of practice is quite unique. Yes, Russell.
Thank you, Bhante, again. Yeah, I realized these mini retreats have been done on at least at least 2 or 3 continents, right? Or at least 4 time zones, right? It must be at least 4 time zones: Europe, the US, the continental, the islands. So yeah, thank you again. It probably, I wanted just to share something kind of funny. I never heard this before, sort of biking meditation. When I bike on the LA River, it's sort of a industrial or post-industrial river with, kind of barbed wire fences. And on one side of me is a lot of tents, quite a few tents, more and more of homeless people. On the other side, in the river, are various types of waterfowl, like ducks and egrets and various cranes. Then I'm kind of biking on this kind of narrow path in between. Quite a few times, that's the time when I actually recite the metta of I guess compassion for other people, or depending, as I'm biking and kind of observing the kind of 2 worlds on either side of me, which is kind of, it's not exactly meditation, but it's kind of like biking. I call it biking, meditation on the move. And being in that particular environment, it's not, it's, with it's kind of contradictions in a sense between the natural world and the kind of abject kind of state of the human world on the other side. And I'm biking through on my bike. Well, it's kind of a privilege, and also it's always reminds me of many, many things as I'm doing it. You know, the wheel is moving. The wheel keeps on moving and moving and moving, and I try to keep the wheel moving, and you know, not get into accident or whatever, you know. So anyway, that's kind of my primitive form of urban kind of meditation, I guess. Anyway, I just like to share this with people in case you happen to be biking. You could still, you know, maybe not in the city with a lot of cars, but you know, if you're biking off the road or that type of thing.
Mhm.
Anyway, so thanks.
Mhm. I know the area of the LA River you're talking about, or Los Angeles that you're talking about. And yes, sadly, there are more and more attempts um, that we're seeing because it's a dire state, difficult situation for many, many people. But in all of that, you said something about you know, about your mind. It's like going through these two worlds, right? The wildlife on your right or your left side, and then the inequity and the difficulties that fellow human beings are going through, and feeling guilty perhaps to be on a bike because you're riding towards your home, an actual home. These are their homes. And this is something that you're doing for pleasure, for your health, etc. So all these things are playing out. Your eyes are picking up all this data, these impressions. Yes, there is always opportunities, like I was saying earlier, to be more anchored in the awareness of the experience. Because in your case, Russell, your eyes are so focused on seeing balance and harmony in the world around you, looking for it, and not finding enough of it, that creates an added tension. In fact, it can sustain that tension, and it can even make it even worse and worse and worse, because life is always, it's the powder keg, and it's lit up. Those are the things that we don't have control over. However, the mind's relationship to those impressions, the six sense doors, are always bringing you stuff, information. And that is what the Buddha was after, not to cling to any of these dhammas as in this case, phenomena. There's a saying where the Buddha gave to Venerable Mahamoggallana. He said, there's nothing, no conditioned thing that can be grasped onto, basically, justifiably. There's nothing like that. Sabbe dhamma nalang abhini vesaya. Nothing is worth being clung to, because everything is passing, everything is impermanent. And because everything is impermanent, it's also suffering. Now, the wise meditator is more and more cognizant of this, more and more, to the point where they become dispassionate towards it, because they see the passing nature of these things. Yes, I was looking at my face yesterday, my dark hair, not a gray hair inside, my skin was beautiful, da 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 da. And this morning I wake up, my back is aching, I have tons of gray hair, I have wrinkles, and my eyes aren't working so well. What happened? Boom, I just crashed and burned. Now, a meditator in this tradition is one who gets to the point of seeing the common theme, common thread. They're no longer captivated by what they're seeing, but what the common pattern is. Things are impermanent. Okay. And because of the repeatability of these facts, this common theme, playing along in every single phenomenon, every single experience we run through, of it being impermanent. Hence, the suffering that comes out of that, the dissatisfaction, suddenly turns the person dispassionate towards these and what's to come. When this is taking place, suddenly there is nirodha. Nirodha is the release of this clinging. It's the cessation of this clinging. Oh, I want the world to be this way. I want the world to be that way. I want my body to be this way. How come it's not like yesterday? Etc., etc. And as the mind, as the awareness releases this grasp that it has on these expectations, shall we say, suddenly there's nekkhamma, or renouncing, giving up of the expectations. When all these stages are happening, suddenly, whether the feeling that arises because of contact with the world, whether it's pleasant or pleasurable or painful, displeasing or neutral, the mind of the meditator remains unagitated. Now, this is what we're meditating for. This is it. Because when the mind is no longer agitated, then you see that this is not me that this is happening to. This is just a process, a continuous process that completely relies on conditions. Therefore, there's no even an issue, not even an issue of clinging to anything. Because this is all a ruse, this is all a play, this is all a game, this is all a mirage. And you're seeing it. I will hurt, I will burn the moment I grasp onto this fire. But because it becomes so continuously, your mind is always here, hovering here in this domain, you start seeing the patterns clearly, and the mind no longer becomes agitated. No longer becoming agitated means the defilements are eradicated. They lose their power. They lose their grasp on your mind. So now, whether you see countless tents, whether you see millions of egrets or ducks, beautiful waterfalls, it really doesn't matter to your mind. You see them all equally, without preferences, without likes and dislikes. You see them for what they are, as mere the outcomes of sets of conditions that you have no control over. And when the mind has reached that non-agitated state, that is what the Buddha calls akuppa ceto vimukti, the unshakable liberation of mind. And you're one of the arahants. Not bad, huh?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's that easy to be that dispassionate. The three sensations that I forgot to mention is, well, sometimes people throw bottles at you, the homeless, and many times there's dead rats on the path. Also, there's a smell of marijuana, quite often from, people congregating. And so, I wouldn't say that doesn't affect me, but I would say that there's so many sensations, and they kind of tend to, in the end, become neutralized. Well, through me anyway. I try to neutralize so I can keep going. If I'm too distracted by the rats, the marijuana, the bottle that's thrown at me, then I will get off the path in a way. Probably, get into accident or something. So I try to neutralize the sensations. I don't know whether that's exactly the same as, not being affected by them, but I try to put them into a more neutral territory, I'm just talking about the bike path. Of course, it applies to things that happen in daily life. Thank
That,
you.
of course, I'm glad you mentioned that neutralization, the neutralizing act of things. And that is one, it could be one of the ways that one would describe being indifferent. It's a self-protective mechanism also. Um, a person who goes through trauma, for example, something is happening to them that's really horrendous. The brain simply goes ahead and um, the brain simply goes ahead and is unable to deal with what's happening, so it blocks things out. So this is totally different than, for example, upekkha. Completely. Sometimes people have even blamed or pointed fingers at arahants or highly developed meditators who are at that level of their practice where they're experiencing upekkha constantly, and they said, oh, you're just indifferent. You're just numb to life. That's totally off the mark. It's not, it's completely wrong characterization of the experience that this person is going through, because they're seeing and experiencing all these things. Of course, you need to protect yourself against broken glass, things that are, trajected at you. That's different. But then, okay, this is too overwhelming. I'm just going to block it out. That's not upekkha, which is essential to, and it keeps growing as the person is relinquishing their strong grasp on how things are supposed to be. So I hope that kind of helps your question. Was there another question? I saw. KK, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful.
And I actually want to say something when I stop hearing, but one thing, and also in relation to Chitta's question yesterday about having a baby, and for those of you who came in late, and my son is actually in the hospital, so it was a very stressful week for me. But I really feel that coming here every Saturday really helped me cope. And then both Russell and Upatissa also say focus on the mind, asking my son too to focus on the mind. And Upatissa asked me that the most important thing for you during this time is self-care, which is something I told my students all the time. So I say, yeah, but and he kind of reinforced it. I better do that. And when you try to do that, try to get your own sleep and all that, everything is, you just feel so calm. You can see that, everything is going to pass. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, it's not going to be permanent. And the important thing is to be mindful at this minute, to be able to cope with my son and myself in the best way possible. That is, but without infringing on his mind. He has to learn to control his mind too. But then in the meantime, if I get like stressed out and all that, it's really not good for either of us. So I just want to say that I really feel that these sessions help me a lot. And I even joke with Russell, but I really think that he is much more affected by things that happen to him outside. So I don't think he has been very well in my estimation, because of all the politics that was going on. I think he was so disturbed by it. Whereas, I really was able to screen it out. I see things, but I don't think I was being apathetic. I just say that these are not things that I can do. I can focus on myself. I can focus on the people around me. So that's what I've been asking Russell. I say, hey, practice what you preach. But I really feel that these mindful lessons are very, very useful. So thank you again.
Each of us have our own process to go through of healing and working and understanding. And So yes, if we're driving through a fire, we need to get ourselves out of there as soon as possible, so long as the engine hasn't caught fire yet. So the focus, we need to prioritize. So self-care is always going to be at the top of the list, whether it's through bringing a smile, reintroducing that to your heart, to your face, to your mind, or just becoming more cognizant of your breath, or how the body is situated. Can you feel the bottom of your feet? That's grounding. That is self-care. It's at the most basic level. But again, pulling ourselves away from the world around us and what's happening, because we do not have control over those things. We never will. It's just a fake promise. Oh, once this happens in the outside, then I'm going to feel okay. That's not self-care. That's delusion, self-delusion. But the person has to understand. We each have our own process. Finally, we get to the point where the dukkha that I was discussing earlier about the non-grasping, not clinging to things, eventually that creates because of impermanence, you see the dukkha. Finally, we need to understand, because dukkha is not just dukkha. Everyone experiences dukkha, but that's not the first noble truth. It's when the person becomes aware of the dukkha on a deep level of understanding. That's when we have the first noble truth occur within the mind of the person. Otherwise, it's no big deal. I mean, what's the special thing about the first noble truth? There's suffering. I mean, come on. But the mind has to get to a level of comprehending that dukkha, becoming aware of it. Otherwise, dukkha becomes a wasted opportunity, like I've mentioned in the past. And then the dispassion or viraga comes in. Yes, we can learn from each other, absolutely. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? The more difficult life is, the more assets we have to practice. What I mean by that is, if you're living in a part of the world where there's hardly any of the suffering-inducing, tension-causing situations that you would find in any major city around the world today, and you have everything you need and want, maybe, in plenty of nature, da-da-da-da-da. Unless the person is really solidly rooted in the practice, they're going to be, let me just say, tempted to look away from dukkha and enjoy and be lost, mesmerized with whatever's happening around them, because the causes for dukkha are not sustainable, or they're not as much. That's why beings in the higher realms, in the deva realms, have less of a chance, much less of a chance to attain or to even come to the path, to the Dhamma, unless they had been exposed to it while they were inhabiting a human body and exposed to the Dhamma. But you don't have to go to the Deva realms, Deva Lokas, to see this. You can look at celebrities, you can look at royal families or people, leaders of countries, or very, very wealthy CEOs who have everything except for the Dhamma. So my encouragement is, we were talking about this not too long ago, how it's essential. Dukkha is essential. Instead of running away from it, if we find ourselves in a world where there is a lot of dukkha, and we can't escape it or stick our heads in the ground to avoid it, let's use that, because you have the fuel for arahantship, more so than that person who has all the resources for a luxurious life. And the Buddha had 3 different palaces, they say. He didn't have to work, ever. His grandkids didn't have to work, ever. Even before asking, it was given to him. But had he stayed in that world, we would never have had the Dhamma. Plain and simple. Fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have to go that far for dukkha to come and knock on our door these days. So if we can, let's do it. Let's take the opportunity and make the most of this dukkha and get ourselves out of here from samsara. That's the encouragement that the Buddha always gave. Get yourselves out of here. At the very least, become a sotapanna, so you do not have to fall into the 4 lower realms, period. As Dhamma teachers, that needs to be our main focus. My goal as a Dhamma teacher, as being a monk, other than my own personal practice as a teacher, is to see each one of you to attain to, at the very, very least, to Sotapanna stage. So you don't have to suffer horrendous, incalculable lifetimes of having your throat slit because you happen to be born in a country that eats meat, for example. Or to be born in the hungry ghost realms. Because we've done some horrific things in our past. No one can come and say, well, you're never going to be reborn in a hell realm. No one can say that to us. Even if we're living a very noble life, but we have not yet attained to the stage of stream entry, which is the first stage of awakening. It is at that stage that the bond to the lower realms is broken. Rebirth, to becoming an animal, to becoming born as a hungry ghost or an asura, or even worse, hell being. These places do exist. These realms do exist. The Buddha has had countless suttas talking about this, explaining it, trying to urge his students to make the most of their lives and cut themselves loose by becoming more diligent in their practice, never taking it for granted. The fact that we are human and the Dhamma is still available now. And that's why we practice. Are there any questions before I will tell you something that recently came up?
Quick question to what you just said.
Yes.
I think we all hope that we can attain to this Sotapanna state. And I feel that maybe I'm on my way because I do not, as I just said, when I focus on my mind, I really don't feel the dukkha so intensely, if at all. And then, so the paradox, because you just said that the dukkha is the fuel to to us to move on. But at the same time, I'm just feeling that I can manage the dukkha and not see it as dukkha more and more as I take your lessons. So am I losing my fuel? So I just want to ask you, you know, how, so do you feel dukkha, for instance, or could you just look at it and say that, no, I can manage anything, you know? So I just, so the paradox, yeah.
Of course, yes, dukkha is always here. It's sitting right here, always. And Lord Buddha himself experienced the dukkha of being in a body. Of course, this is no way comparison of this puny self to the Lord Buddha, but the great teacher. But yes, using the dukkha is becoming mindful of it constantly, but not to the point where, I mean, this goes about the practice, your mention of it, and how you're feeling different. That's great. You're definitely closer to becoming a sotapanna based on your testimonials every week of how these sittings have been helping you to see yourself. So the confusion gets less and less and less and less. But more than these sessions, I highly recommend you go back to the teacher's own words, to the suttas, because there's a tremendous wealth of information there. Not just information, but many aha moment causing declarations, statements made by the Buddha. Remember, Sotapanna stage, you can actually attain, oftentimes it has been the case, in fact, where more people are becoming Sotapanna, not necessarily through the practice of meditation, but through listening to the Dhamma. This was the case even at the time of the Buddha. Many of those people, laity in fact, who attained, including Venerable, actually, they were not laity, Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana, they attained to the first stage simply by hearing the Dhamma. Very short verse. So it's one of the ways, one of the 5 ways that a person can attain awakening. So we cannot undermine that. But nowadays, when we come to listen to the Dhamma or read the Dhamma, there's so much junk in the mind, in the heart. There's so much filtering that the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. We don't get to hear the Dhamma. We don't get to feel. We don't get to listen with our hearts. So that is crucial. So we have to read the suttas of the discourses. You can start with the Dhammapada. You can do go over any of the suttas. I've recorded, I don't know how many it is already, probably 1,000. But there are also written suttas, typed. You can just go on Sutta Central, Access to Insight, among a number of others, as well as the recorded ones where people don't have the time to read them per se. So being exposed to them really can get the mind working in a certain way. Yes. Yes, Greg.
Just hearing KK's comment then about her concern that when she improves in her practice that the fuel of dukkha will run out. I think it helps to look at, rather than the fuel running out, we're looking at a difference in the source of the fuel. So prior to having a practice, we experience a lot of dukkha and we experience a lot of pressure in the dissatisfaction that is being caused to us. But when we establish a practice, what we gain from that practice are the insights into what dukkha is and where it comes from and how it happens in our life. So if we can change the fuel to the the joy that we can get from the improvement in our practice to being able to see those insights and being able to have the wholesome desire for further insights and to become better in our practice, that then becomes the fuel rather than the dukkha itself. So it's not a matter of running out of the thing that's causing us to improve. We're just looking at changing the thing that's causing us to improve to a wholesome desire and a desire to get even more better and more better and to continue all the way along.
Yes, thank you, Greg. Just tiny little change of focus. Absolutely. Well, we never liked that class in high school that we didn't enjoy being in, even if we, got very good grades in it, but we really didn't enjoy it. Versus, let's say, pottery class or something, where the teacher allowed us to become more creative. So that joy that Greg's talking about, that joy. Remember, it's one of the 7 factors of awakening. One time at IBMC, somebody asked me, well, what can I do when I get so slouchy, so drowsy, so not into it? And I said, could you bring up that factor of joy? It's like, how come I never thought of that? Yes, bring that joy up. Just ask your intuition. And if you've had any of the jhanas, especially the first, sometimes we just have to ask our intuition, boop, comes up. And it can pull you out from the gunk of just being so drowsy, being lost in sloth and torpor. And you're awake. You're able to run a mile, if not 10. The Buddha didn't use these like haphazardly or just like, yeah, let's use those. 7 factors of awakening are the conditions, even though Nibbana is the conditionless element. But these are the requirements, the tools that we need. But again, going back to the suttas is what I will always go to. And as a resource for you to gain that wealth of understanding, the theory which can be applied. And sometimes they come together. So, yes, in regards to the other realms and the rebirth, while I was going over that with you, the BMV, the Buddhist Mahavihara in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, they asked me to do another talk through Zoom, and as a theme, I chose that one, talking about life after death, and go over. Of course, it's a very tough subject to tackle because it's very deep and it takes a lot longer than an hour. But I will go over that, and I will ask Dhammadina to send the link to that. I know that they usually have it be broadcasted live on Facebook, their Facebook page, and it will immediately obviously go on YouTube right after. But if they send me a link, I will ask Dhammadina to forward it to you guys to watch it. So, but that one is, oh boy, it's on the 17th. It's next week, next Sunday. So, and I will, oh yeah, on the same day, a few hours later, I will be doing the IBMC talk. So, which I don't know what I will be talking on, but it's on the same day. And the IBMC Zoom, if you're on the IBMC, IBMC's webpage, I think it's also live, right, Greg? The YouTube. I think it's live YouTube. Anyhow, I'll send you the link. So, oh, we went over by 10 minutes, but it doesn't matter. What is time, right? So, if you have any further questions, and you know, I really love the contributions that you made here to help each other. I love it. You know, I repeat to you sometimes when Venerable Ananda was asked how important is the presence of Kalyana Mittas, he said, and this was in reference to his Kalyana Mitta, who was Venerable Sariputta. He was, you know, he became very inspired and aroused and with the significance of that importance. And he said, "Oh, Bhante, to the Buddha, it's half the spiritual path, half of the holy life." And the Buddha said, "No, don't say that, Ananda. Do not say that." He said, "It's all of the holy path. It's the entirety of it, having Kalyana Mittas." So please do not ever underestimate the value that each of you have for each other. And the Dhamma is the uniting factor. It's beyond affection. The Dhamma is the ground. And please feel free to help each other as best as you can, supported by the Dhamma and the Triple Gem course. So let's do the sharing or dedication of merits. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find health relief. May all beings share in these merits that we have thus acquired for the achievement of all kinds of wholesome happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, and devas and nagas of mighty power share in these merits. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Be well, and keep practicing. Stay resolute, determined, with an open heart, always forgiving and always opening up, remembering the Buddha's words, Sabbe Dhamma nalang abhinivesaya. Nothing is worth clinging to. Not even the attainments. Not even. So be well.
Okay, Bhante.
See you next week.
Thank you. Goodbye.